Hello, shooters. I'm Dr. Tactical. Let's talk about carrying reloads as part of your EDC. We know it's tactical, but is it practical? Now, internet wisdom tells us that we should not leave the house without at least 85 rounds of ammunition, a backup gun, and a knife in your teeth. Without that, you, my friend, are not prepared. Now, statistics, however, tell us that this is probably already overkill. But hey, we're gun guys. We know that the chance of needing a firearm in our civilian lives is very, very slim. Yet, we do it anyway. Why? Well, there are a virtual plethora of answers, but for most of us, it's simply for peace of mind or just in case. Personally, if it doesn't infringe too much on my day-to-day activities and allows me to move about comfortably, then I'll carry. Just to know that should the highly unlikely event occur, I'm prepared. I'm willing to suffer a certain amount of discomfort on days that I have absolutely no need for it in order to have it on the one day that I literally can't live without it. Today, we're diving into one of the most controversial topics in the EDC community, the reload. Is it tactical fantasy? Is it insurance? Is it just extra weight pulling your pants down, making you less likely to carry on a daily basis? Let's look at the math, the mindset, and the harsh mechanical realities of keeping your gun running when life goes sideways. I'm Dr. Tactical, and the doctor will see you now. Welcome back to the channel, and those of you who are new, welcome to the channel. Whether you find this content useful or a complete waste of your valuable time, please like, hype, and if you haven't already, subscribe. And by all means, please share your experiences with and philosophies on carrying reloads as part of your EDC in the comments section below. All right, so let's get into this. Let's start with the math. You've likely heard the famous rule of threes. It states that the average gunfight involves 3 or less rounds fired, lasts for 3 or less seconds, and takes place at 3 or less yards. People will cite this alleged study by prefacing it with, according to the FBI statistics. Actually, in the words of Meatloaf, I promise that's as close as this channel comes to becoming a musical. The FBI doesn't really track civilian self-defense shootings in that kind of detail. They track law enforcement. So that rule of three is largely a mix of old police data referencing LEOCA, which is law enforcement officers killed and assaulted, as well as NYPD SOP9 reports. This amalgamation of data has since been copied and pasted onto the civilian world and accepted as factual statistical information. In other words, this FBI study most likely does not exist. However, we do have data from experts like Tom Gibbons at Rangemaster and Claude Werner, the tactical professor. These are trainers who actually track their students' real-world encounters. And guess what? Their data largely backs up the short and fast theory that is the rule of threes. Tom Gibbons has had over 60 students involved in confirmed shootings. Do you know how many needed to reload to win? 0. By the way, interesting stat. All of his students that were involved in shooting situations won, except, wait for it, those that didn't have their firearms on them at the time of the altercation. Let that simmer as you ruminate. So in the civilian world, if you empty a standard 15-round magazine and the threat is still standing, the problem usually isn't that you ran out of bullets. The problem is that you ran out of time. Now let's talk about the physical act of reloading. On a flat range with a shot timer, we all feel like John Wick. But in a life or death scenario, you have massive dumps of adrenaline. You lose fine motor skills. Your hands turn into flippers. This is where the debate gets spicy. If you carry a revolver, reloading under stress is essentially a magic trick. You have to align 5, 6, 7, sometimes even 8 distinct holes with the same number of wobbly bullets while moving. It is significantly harder than slamming a magazine into a pistol grip. However, and this is a big however, the revolver crowd has a valid point about why they might not need to reload in the first place. So with a revolver, while the reload is harder, the wheel gun itself is indifferent to your mistakes. The semi-auto, on the other hand, let's talk limp wristing. If you have a bad, panicked, or weak grip on a semi-auto, the slide can short stroke and induce a jam. You think because of all your training that won't happen to you? Here's a scenario, compliments of a YouTube channel called Active Self-Protection, where an off-duty police officer is recognized by someone he had recently locked up. The individual and his friend decided to exact revenge on this police officer. The unsuspecting policeman found himself upside down, being mercilessly beaten and kicked. Fortunately, he was able to get a hold of his semi-automatic handgun and fire a shot into the scrotum of the primary assailant. That was enough to take him out of the fight. And lucky for the officer, he was dealing with criminals who weren't fully committed to the fight. So the other assailant ran off. Why was that lucky for him? Well, because it turns out that because of his position at the time, when he's shooting upwards and laying on the ground, he limp-wristed the gun while firing upwards. Now, this is somebody who I'm sure has trained. But given his circumstance, it wasn't possible to use a perfect grip. This reduced his potential round count from 16 to 1 and limited his follow-up shots to 0. Limp wrist or revolver? It doesn't care. Contact shots. If you're fighting at bad breath distance and jam the muzzle of a semi-auto into the bad guy, you can push the slide out of battery. It won't fire. That's a problem. Whereas with a revolver, you can basically use this thing like brass knuckles. It doesn't care. It does not care. Third, the dead round. This is a big one. If you pull the trigger on a Glock and hear a click instead of a bang, you have to perform a tap rack bang in order to clear a bad round. That takes time and 2 hands. You pull the trigger on a revolver and hear a click, you just pull the trigger again, and the problem solves itself. So the trade-off is real. The semi-auto gives you an easier reload, but a higher chance of needing to manipulate the gun to keep it running. The revolver is a pain to reload, but it's the honey badger of firearms. It just doesn't care what you do to it. So if the statistics say we probably won't shoot the gun dry, why do so many of us, including myself, sometimes carry a spare magazine? Well, it comes down to the malfunction argument. The most likely reason you'll need a fresh magazine isn't because you shot 17 rounds. It's because magazines are the most common failure point in semi-autos. If your gun jams, the fastest fix is to rip the mag out and put a fresh mag in. We carry guns for the 0.01% worst day of our lives. Carrying a spare mag is simply preparing for the 0.01% of the 0.01%. Here's the verdict. If you carry a modern polymer Wonder 9, chances are 99.9% of the time that the magazine inside the gun is all you will ever need to break contact and escape. But if carrying a spare mag, not something ridiculous like this, but a regular mag, gives you peace of mind and doesn't make you leave the gun at home because it's a lot, then do it. Just remember, a reload is not a panacea. It takes time that you probably won't have. So focus on your first shot, not your 31st. And if you carry a revolver, well, you may want to consider carrying 2. It's a lot faster than trying to reload 1. Let me know in the comments. Do you trust the New York Reload carrying a second gun? Or are you a spare mag believer? Or do you just raw dog it and carry 1 gun fully loaded? I hope you found this video entertaining and informative, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would kindly like, hype, and if you haven't already, subscribe. And of course, share your comments in the comment section below. Remember, train smart, carry often, and most importantly, stay tactical, my friends. Stay tactical. I'm Dr. Tactical. Dr. Tactical, out.